The blood-red sun dipped below the horizon as Emma Zimmerman clutched the doctor's telegram in her trembling hand. The words, "Sister deceased, stop, children, orphans, stop, come immediately, stop," burning into her vision like a brand. The year was 1875, and Emma had less than $20 to her name, but her twin sister's children needed her, so she would go, even if it meant traveling alone across 2,000 miles of untamed frontier to a place called Silverridge, Colorado. Emma stood on the dusty platform of the Silverridge station 3 weeks later, her once fine blue traveling dress spotted with the grime of the journey. At 26, she had never ventured west of Chicago before, had never imagined herself in such a wild place. The small mining town sprawled before her, wooden buildings clinging to the mountainside like desperate men to hope. "Miss Zimmerman?" A thin man with spectacles approached. "I'm Dr. Wilkins. We corresponded by telegram." "The children?" Emma asked immediately. The doctor's face softened. "At the ranch with their father. Your sister's husband, Mr. Preston, he's not doing well, I'm afraid." Emma blinked in confusion. "Their father is alive? Your telegram said that they were orphaned, yes. Perhaps that was presumptuous of me." Dr. Wilkins adjusted his spectacles. "Mr. Preston hasn't been present since your sister passed from the fever. The children are essentially without parents. He sits with them but doesn't speak, doesn't work the ranch. The hands have been managing as best they can." Emma felt anger rising. "So their father abandons his responsibility while alive? That seems worse than death." "It's not so simple, Miss Zimmerman. Your sister's passing broke something in him. I thought perhaps family might help both him and the children." An hour later, Emma sat beside the doctor in his buggy as they traveled the winding dirt road leading to the Preston ranch. The sprawling valley opened before them, framed by purple mountains still capped with snow despite the summer heat. "What can you tell me about my brother-in-law?" Emma asked, watching dust clouds rise behind them. "I never met him. Clara's letters were sparse in recent years." Dr. Wilkins cleared his throat. "Russell Preston is respected around these parts. Built his ranch from nothing after striking a modest silver claim. Not wealthy like some, but comfortable. Good man. Treats his hands fairly. And my sister? Was she happy? By all accounts. The children certainly were well cared for. 3 of them. Michael is 8, Sarah is 6, and little Thomas just turned 4. Emma tried to remember the faces from the daguerreotype Clara had sent 2 Christmases ago. What happened exactly? "The fever came through last month. Hit the town hard. Your sister tended the sick before falling ill herself. Preston never left her side. But..." The doctor's voice trailed off. "I've seen grief do strange things to people, Miss Zimmerman, but his runs deeper than most." The Preston ranch appeared around a bend, a sprawling main house of timber and stone with several outbuildings, corrals, and pastures stretching toward distant mountains. A few ranch hands paused in their work to watch the buggy approach. An older woman with gray-streaked hair hurried from the house as they pulled up. "Thank the Lord you've come," she said before Emma could even step down. "I'm Mrs. Holloway, the housekeeper. The children have been asking for you since they heard their aunt was coming." Emma allowed herself to be led inside, her heart pounding as she stepped into her sister's home. The interior was surprisingly refined for a frontier ranch. Good furniture, patterned rugs, painted china in a hutch. Clara's touch was evident everywhere. "Where are the children?" Emma asked. "Upstairs with their father. He sits with them most days, but..." Mrs. Holloway lowered her voice. "He's not himself, miss." Emma nodded, following Mrs. Holloway up the wooden staircase. The housekeeper pointed to an open door at the end of the hallway, then retreated back downstairs with the doctor. Emma moved forward slowly, her boots silent on the runner carpet. The doorway framed a scene that stopped her heart. 3 small beds lined the wall of a cheerful room painted sky blue. 3 small children with her sister's features sat or lay in those beds, watching a broad-shouldered man who sat on a chair between them. Russell Preston's head was bowed, his dark hair falling forward as he whispered words Emma could barely hear. "I'm trying. I'm trying." The smallest child, Thomas, she presumed, noticed her first. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice small and uncertain. The man's head snapped up, and Emma found herself pinned by eyes the color of storm clouds. His face might once have been handsome, but grief had hollowed his cheeks and shadowed his eyes. A week's worth of beard darkened his jaw. "I'm your Aunt Emma," she said, stepping into the room. "Your Mama's sister." The girl Sarah sat up straighter. "You look like Mama." "We were twins," Emma explained, moving closer. "That means we looked very much alike." Russell Preston rose to his full height, towering over Emma. His voice, when it came, was rough from disuse. "You should have written first." Emma lifted her chin. The doctor's telegram suggested urgency. "Doctor should mind his business," the man muttered, but there was no real heat in his words. He looked back at the children, then at Emma, as though unsure what to do now that she was here. The oldest boy, Michael, studied Emma with solemn eyes that seemed too old for his face. "Are you going to stay with us now that Mama's gone?" Before Emma could answer, Russell Preston moved past her toward the door. "I need air," he said, and was gone, boots thudding down the stairs. Emma stood awkwardly for a moment before sinking onto the chair he'd vacated. "I thought I might stay for a while," she said carefully. "Would that be all right with you 3? 3 sets of eyes, all the same blue-gray as their fathers, watched her cautiously. "Do you know how to make pancakes?" Thomas asked seriously. "Mama made pancakes on Sundays." Emma smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I do know how to make pancakes. Your Mama and I learned together when we were girls not much older than you, Sarah." "Papa doesn't make pancakes," Sarah said. "He doesn't make anything anymore." "He tries," Michael said defensively. "He said so." Emma glanced toward the door where Russell Preston had disappeared, wondering what kind of man abandoned his children to grief, yet sat beside them whispering that he was trying. She wasn't sure whether to pity him or despise him. "Well," she said, turning back to the children, "I'm very good at pancakes, and I've come all the way from Boston to meet you. Would you like to show me around your home?" Later that evening, after helping Mrs. Holloway put the children to bed, Emma ventured outside. The mountain air held a chill that her Eastern clothing wasn't prepared for. She wrapped her shawl tighter and followed the path toward a small ridge overlooking the ranch. A figure stood silhouetted against the indigo sky. Russell Preston, watching the stars emerge. Emma considered turning back, but steeled herself and continued forward. If she was to help these children, she needed to understand their father. "Mr. Preston," she said quietly. He didn't turn. "Miss Zimmerman." "I've come to help, not to judge," Emma said, though judging him was exactly what she'd been doing since she arrived. "Then you're a better person than most." His voice was low, with the slight drawl of a man who'd spent years in the West. "The children need you," Emma said simply. "You think I don't know that?" There was anguish in his voice now. "You think I don't try every day to be what they need? Whispering that you're trying isn't the same as doing." He turned then, and in the fading light, she could see the raw pain in his face. "You have no idea what I'm fighting here." "Then tell me." Emma stepped closer. "Clara was my twin. Part of me died with her. But those children in there, they're alive, and they need more than good intentions." Russell Preston stared at her for a long moment. "You look like her, but you're nothing alike." Clara was gentle. She never would have confronted a man she just met. Clara had the luxury of gentleness because she had a partner to be strong when needed, Emma countered. I've had to be my own strength. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She told me about you. Said you were the brave one. Emma felt tears threatening again at this small connection to her sister. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified and out of place. But those children deserve better than both of us just trying. He looked back toward the house. I keep thinking she'll walk through the door. That this is some terrible dream. I know, Emma said softly. But it isn't. And tomorrow morning, those children will wake up needing breakfast and love and purpose. And you'll provide that? There was challenge in his voice. I'll do my part. Will you? Russell ran a hand through his dark hair. I've barely kept the ranch together these past weeks. The hands are loyal, but they need direction. The herd needs moving to summer pasture. The mine needs management. So manage them, Emma said simply. Work might be the very thing to pull you back to the living. He studied her face in the gathering darkness. Clara's letters didn't do you justice, Miss Zimmerman. Call me Emma, please. We're family now, whether either of us planned it or not. Russell, he offered in return, though most folks around here call me Russ. A companionable silence fell between them as the stars brightened overhead. Emma shivered in the mountain air. You should go in, Russell said. Nights get cold up here, even in summer. Emma nodded, turning back toward the house. Will you join us for breakfast tomorrow? The children have requested pancakes. Something like pain crossed his features. Clara made pancakes on Sundays. I know. Thomas told me. Russell looked up at the stars once more. I'll try. Do more than try, Emma said gently, then left him to his thoughts. The next morning, Emma rose early, determined to make a good impression on her niece and nephews. She borrowed an apron from Mrs. Holloway and set about mixing pancake batter in the large kitchen. You're up with the sun, Mrs. Holloway observed, coming in to stoke the stove. Just like your sister. Were you with the family long? Emma asked, measuring flour. 5 years now. Came after Sarah was born to help with the household. The older woman's eyes grew sad. Miss Clara was a fine lady. Learned ranching ways quick, though she was city-born like yourself. I'm not sure I'll adapt so easily, Emma admitted. Mrs. Holloway studied her. You've more grit than you let on, I suspect. The children took to you right away, that's telling. Emma was about to reply when boots sounded on the porch, and Russell Preston entered the kitchen. He'd shaved, Emma noticed, and changed his clothes. His hair was damp, as if he'd dunked his head in cold water. Morning, he said gruffly. Mrs. Holloway looked as surprised as Emma felt. Would you like coffee, Mr. Preston? Please. He stood awkwardly by the table, looking out of place in his own kitchen. Emma continued mixing batter, aware of his eyes on her. The children should be down soon, she said. I promised pancakes. Russell nodded, accepting the coffee Mrs. Holloway poured. I need to speak with the foreman this morning. We're behind on moving the herd. That's good, Emma said carefully, not wanting to sound too encouraging and drive him back into silence. The patter of feet on the stairs announced the children's arrival. They stopped in the doorway, staring at their father as if seeing a ghost. Papa, Sarah asked tentatively, are you having breakfast with us? Russell set down his coffee. Thought I might. Your aunt is making pancakes. The tension in the room dissolved as the children rushed to the table, suddenly chattering about dreams and plans for the day. Emma watched as Russell's stiff posture gradually relaxed, his responses to the children growing more natural. By the time the pancakes were ready, the kitchen felt almost normal, almost like a family. Emma served the golden stacks with the honey Mrs. Holloway provided, then joined them at the table. These are almost as good as Mama's, Thomas declared, syrup dripping down his chin. High praise, Russell said, meeting Emma's eyes across the table. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement, perhaps, that this small step mattered. After breakfast, Russell prepared to meet with his foreman. At the door he paused, looking back at Emma. "I'll be back for supper," he said, the words a promise to her as much as to the children. The days fell into a pattern after that. Russell would rise early to work the ranch, joining the family for breakfast and supper. Emma established a routine with the children, continuing their lessons as Clara had begun, reading to them in the afternoons and learning about ranch life alongside them. 2 weeks after her arrival, Emma was hanging laundry in the yard when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Russell rode in with 2 of his ranch hands, dust coating their clothing. He dismounted with the easy grace of a man who'd spent his life in the saddle. "The children are with Mrs. Holloway, picking berries by the creek," Emma said as he approached. Russell nodded, removing his hat and wiping sweat from his brow. "We've finished moving the herd to summer pasture. Would have been done a week earlier if I hadn't," he stopped himself. "If you hadn't been drowning in grief?" Emma supplied gently. His eyes met hers. "Something like that." "You're doing better," she observed, pinning a sheet to the line. "The children see it too. Because of you." The words seemed to surprise him as much as her. "You've brought life back to this house." Emma felt her cheeks warm under his steady gaze. "I've done what any family would do." "No," Russell said firmly. "Most would have taken one look at a broken man and 3 motherless children and run for the next train east." "I could never abandon Clara's children," Emma said, then added more softly, "or you." The admission hung between them, unexpected and fragile. Russell stepped closer. "How long can you stay, Emma?" The question caught her off guard. She'd been so focused on the immediate needs of the children that she hadn't considered her future plans. I don't know. I gave up my teaching position to come. I have no immediate reason to return east." Relief crossed his features. "The children need you. And you." The words slipped out before she could stop them. His expression grew intense. "I find I'm counting on seeing you each morning and evening. More than I should, perhaps." Emma's heart quickened. "It's too soon to speak of such things," she said, though part of her thrilled at his words. "You're right," Russell agreed, stepping back. "Forgive me. I've been alone with my thoughts too long." "There's nothing to forgive," Emma assured him, returning to her laundry to hide her flustered state. Russell replaced his hat. "I should check on the children." As he walked toward the creek, Emma watched him go, wondering at the strange turn her life had taken. She'd come west to care for her orphaned niece and nephews, only to find their father alive but broken. Now, just weeks later, something was growing between them, something neither of them had anticipated. That evening, after the children were in bed, Emma sat on the front porch, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the night chill. The ranch was peaceful, with only the distant lowing of cattle and the chirping of crickets breaking the silence. The door opened behind her, and Russell emerged, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Emma and settled into the chair beside her. "Michael asked me today when you're leaving," he said after they'd sat in comfortable silence for several minutes. Emma's hands tightened around her cup. "What did you tell him?" "That I hoped it wouldn't be any time soon." Russell looked over at her. "I should have consulted you first." "No, that was a fair answer." Emma sipped her coffee. "I've been thinking about it myself. I have enough savings to last a few more weeks, but eventually." "You don't need savings here," Russell interrupted. "This is your sister's home. It can be yours for as long as you want." Emma set her cup down. "That's very generous, but I can't simply live here indefinitely as a dependent." "What if?" Russell stopped, then started again. What if there was another arrangement? Emma's pulse quickened. What sort of arrangement? Russell turned in his chair to face her directly. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. But I see how the children have blossomed since you came. I see how you've helped me find my way back to them. Russell, let me finish, please. His voice was steady, but she could see tension in his shoulders. I'm not asking for love. I don't expect that. But I'm offering a partnership. For the children's sake. For the ranch. Emma stood, moving to the porch railing to put distance between them. You're suggesting a marriage of convenience. Russell stood as well but didn't approach her. It sounds cold when you put it that way. I'm suggesting a future for all of us. The children would have stability. You would have a home and purpose. And I? He ran a hand through his hair. I would have helped raising Clara's children the way she would have wanted. This isn't something to decide lightly, Emma said, though her mind was already racing with possibilities. Of course not, Russell agreed quickly. Take all the time you need to consider. I just wanted you to know the option exists. Emma turned to look at him. This man she'd known for only a few weeks yet felt connected to through shared grief and the children they both loved. I'll think about it, she promised. Russell nodded, relief evident in his expression. That's all I ask. The proposal, practical as it was, kept Emma awake that night. She stared at the ceiling of the guest room, Clara's sewing room, converted for her use and weighed her options. Return east to what? A spinster teacher's life in a Boston boarding house? Or stay here, marry her sister's widower, and help raise the children she'd grown to love? It was the logical choice. Yet something held her back, not just the impropriety of it, but the nagging feeling that agreeing to a marriage without love would be settling for less than she deserved. Less than Russell deserved, too. The next morning brought news that pushed personal considerations aside. One of the ranch hands rode in at dawn, bringing word that rustlers had been spotted near the north pasture. They've hit 2 other ranches this month, the hand reported as Emma listened from the kitchen doorway. Taken nearly 50 head altogether. Russell's face hardened. Get Barnes and Johnson. We'll ride out and reinforce the men already up there. You're going after rustlers? Emma asked, stepping forward. Russell turned, seeming to notice her for the first time. Not after them, just making sure they don't take our cattle. We'll be back by nightfall. Be careful, Emma said, anxiety tightening her chest. Russell's expression softened. Always am. He hesitated, then added, Tell the children I'll read to them when I return. Emma nodded, watching as he gathered his gear and rode out with 4 of his men. The day stretched endlessly as she tried to keep the children occupied and her worries at bay. When dusk fell with no sign of Russell or his men, Emma's concern deepened. Mrs. Holloway tried to reassure her. Ranch business often takes longer than expected, the housekeeper said as they prepared supper. Mr. Preston knows these mountains. He'll be fine. But when the children were in bed and the house grew quiet, Emma couldn't shake her unease. She paced the front porch, scanning the darkness for any sign of riders. It was nearly midnight when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Emma hurried down the steps as several riders emerged from the darkness. Her relief turned to alarm when she saw Russell slumped in his saddle, supported by one of his men. He's been shot, the ranch hand called out. Get the doctor. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Wilkins arrived from town, extracted a bullet from Russell's shoulder, and pronounced him lucky the wound had missed anything vital. Emma sat by his bedside through the night, changing compresses and monitoring his fever. When Russell finally opened his eyes shortly before dawn, Emma was dozing in the chair beside him. He reached out, his fingers brushing her hand. You're still here, he murmured. Emma straightened, fully awake now. Of course I am. How do you feel? Like I've been trampled by the entire herd, Russell grimaced. Did they get any cattle? No, Emma assured him. Your men drove them off. One was captured. The sheriff has him in town. Russell relaxed slightly. The children, asleep. They don't know yet. Good. His eyes held hers. You've been here all night? Emma nodded, suddenly self-conscious about her rumpled appearance and the intimacy of being alone with him in his bedroom. I should let you rest. As she stood, Russell caught her hand. Emma, thank you. Something in his voice made her pause. You would have done the same for me. I would, he agreed. And more. His grip tightened slightly. I've been thinking about what I said about a partnership. It wasn't fair to you. Emma's heart sank. You've changed your mind? No, Russell said quickly. But I've realized I was dishonest with you and myself. Emma sat back down, confused. I don't understand. Russell struggled to sit up straighter, wincing at the movement. When I suggested marriage, I made it sound like a business arrangement. The truth is... He paused, seeming to gather his courage. The truth is that I find myself thinking of you as more than just Clara's sister or the children's aunt. Emma felt her cheeks flush. Russell, you're injured and exhausted. Getting shot has a way of clarifying one's thoughts. He interrupted with a hint of dry humor. I care for you, Emma. Not just for what you've done for the children, but for who you are. Emma's pulse quickened. It's too soon, she whispered. Probably, he acknowledged. But out here, life doesn't always give you the luxury of perfect timing. Before Emma could respond, a small voice came from the doorway. Papa. They both turned to see Michael standing there, eyes wide with fear at the sight of his father bandaged in bed. Come here, son, Russell said, his voice strengthening. As Michael approached the bed cautiously, Emma rose. I'll check on the others, she said, needing space to process Russell's words. The next week tested them all. Russell was confined to bed for several days, chafing at the inactivity. The children were clingy and fearful, needing constant reassurance that their father would recover. Emma found herself managing the household, soothing the children, and tending to Russell, all while trying to sort through her complicated feelings. By the time Russell was well enough to move downstairs to the parlor, Emma had reached a decision. She found him sitting by the window, watching the children play in the yard with one of the younger ranch hands. You're looking stronger today, she observed, taking the chair opposite him. Strong enough to have a proper conversation, Russell replied, his eyes searching her face. You've been avoiding being alone with me. Emma couldn't deny it. I needed time to think. And have you? Thought about my proposal, both versions of it? Emma nodded, folding her hands in her lap. I have, and I've decided that I can't accept either one. Pain flashed across Russell's face before he schooled his features. I see. No, you don't, Emma said gently. I can't marry you for convenience because that would be a lie. And I can't marry you for love yet, because we're both still healing. Russell frowned. Then what? I'm proposing something different, Emma continued. I'll stay through the winter. We'll get to know each other properly. The children will have stability. And in the spring, if we both feel the same way, we can discuss marriage again. Hope returned to Russell's eyes. You're not leaving. Not yet, Emma confirmed. This place, these children, they've become important to me. And you. She met his gaze steadily. You've become important to me too. Russell reached across the space between them, offering his hand. Emma took it, feeling the calluses on his palm and the strength in his grip. Spring seems a long way off, he said with the ghost of a smile. We have time, Emma replied. That's what I've realized. There's no need to rush. As summer turned to fall, Emma found herself settling into life at the Preston ranch. She established a small schoolroom for the children, taught them their letters and numbers, and watched with pride as they thrived under her care. Russell regained his strength and threw himself back into ranch work, but he made time each day for his family. The evening ritual of him reading to the children became sacred time that Emma treasured, watching from the doorway as the four heads bent over a book together. Emma wrote to her former landlady in Boston, arranging for her few possessions to be shipped west. It was a commitment of sorts, though she still maintained that no decisions would be made until spring. The first snow came in early November, transforming the ranch into a wonderland of white. The children were ecstatic, begging to build snowmen and make angels in the fresh powder. "Bundle up properly," Emma instructed as they pulled on mittens and scarves. "And stay where I can see you from the porch." As the children romped in the snow, Russell joined Emma on the porch, handing her a steaming cup of coffee. "They're happy," he observed, watching Michael show Thomas how to roll the perfect snowball. "Yes," Emma agreed. "They've healed faster than either of us expected." Russell's gaze shifted to her face. "And you? Are you happy here?" Emma considered the question seriously. "I miss certain things about the East museums, libraries, concerts. But yes, I'm happy here in ways I never expected to be." "We have dances in town," Russell offered, "and a small library." "It's not Boston, but it's home," Emma finished for him. "Feels like home now." Something shifted in Russell's eyes. "Emma," whatever he intended to say was interrupted by a snowball hitting his back. They turned to see the children giggling mischievously. "You're asking for trouble?" Russell called out with mock sternness before scooping up snow to return fire. Soon all four of them were engaged in a spirited snowball fight, their laughter echoing across the snowy ranch yard. Emma couldn't remember the last time she'd played so freely, without worry for propriety or judgment. When they finally returned to the house, cheeks flushed and clothes damp, Mrs. Holloway greeted them with hot chocolate and disapproving clucks about wet boots on her clean floors. That evening, after the children were asleep, Emma sat by the fire in the parlor, mending one of Sarah's dresses. Russell entered quietly, carrying 2 glasses of amber liquid. "Brandy," he explained, offering her one, to ward off the chill. Emma accepted with a smile. "I haven't had brandy since my father's funeral." Russell settled into the chair across from her. "Tell me about your parents." Emma set aside her sewing. "They were older when they had us, Clara and me. Father was a professor of literature, mother a minister's daughter. They valued education above all else." "That explains your teaching," Russell observed. "It seemed the natural path. Clara was the artistic one, she painted beautifully." Emma took a small sip of brandy, feeling it warm her from within. "What about your family?" Russell gazed into the fire. "Father was a farmer in Missouri, worked himself to death on land that barely yielded enough to feed us. Mother remarried a year after he died, a shopkeeper in St. Louis. Is that when you came west?" Russell nodded. "I was 17, worked cattle drives, ranch hands, anything to earn my way. Found silver when I was 24, not a fortune, but enough to start this place." "And Clara? How did you meet her?" A smile touched his lips. "She was visiting distant relations in Denver. I was delivering cattle. Saw her sketching in the hotel garden and couldn't look away." Emma smiled, imagining the scene. She always could lose herself completely in her art. "She wrote to you about me?" "Some," Emma admitted. "She said you were stubborn and too serious, but that you looked at her as if she were the sunrise after the longest night." Russell's expression softened. "That's a fair assessment." "She was happy," Emma said with certainty. "Her letters made that clear." "I hope so," Russell replied. "I tried to give her everything she wanted." "Including children," Emma observed. She wanted a large family. A shadow crossed Russell's face. After Thomas was born, the doctor said there shouldn't be more. It was difficult for her to accept. Emma nodded, understanding better now her sister's occasional melancholy tone in later letters. "May I ask you something personal?" Russell said after a moment. Emma raised an eyebrow. "You may ask. I may choose not to answer." "Fair enough." Russell leaned forward slightly. "Why didn't you marry? A beautiful, educated woman like yourself must have had suitors." Emma felt her cheeks warm, and not just from the brandy. There were a few possibilities over the years. None felt right. None made you feel like the sunrise after the longest night? There was a teasing note in Russell's voice, but his eyes were serious. Emma met his gaze steadily. "No, none made me feel that way. And now," the question hung between them, loaded with meaning. "Now I'm beginning to understand what Clara meant," Emma admitted softly. Russell set down his glass and moved to kneel beside her chair. "Spring is still months away," he said, taking her hand. "But my feelings grow stronger every day." Emma's heart raced. "Russell, I'm not asking for an answer now," he assured her. "Just telling you where I stand." He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent warmth spiraling through her body. Then he stood, wished her good night, and left her alone with her thundering pulse and the dying fire. As December arrived, preparations for Christmas occupied the household. Emma was determined to make the holiday special for the children, their first without their mother. She enlisted their help in decorating the house with pine boughs and red ribbons, taught them carols she remembered from her childhood, and secretly worked on gifts in the evenings. Russell contributed by bringing home the largest pine tree Emma had ever seen indoors, laughing at her astonishment as he and two ranch hands wrestled it into the parlor. "The children should have something magnificent," he explained as they decorated it with paper stars and strings of cranberries and popcorn. On Christmas Eve, after a festive supper, Russell surprised everyone by producing a fiddle from a cupboard. "I didn't know you played," Emma said as he tuned the strings. "Not well," Russell admitted with a grin, "but well enough for a Christmas Eve dance." He struck up a lively tune, and soon the children were skipping around the parlor. Mrs. Holloway clapped in time, her usual sternness melting away in the festive atmosphere. When Russell finished the tune, Michael tugged at Emma's skirt. "Dance with Papa," the boy urged. "He hasn't danced since before Mama went to heaven." Emma glanced at Russell, who had stilled at his son's words. Their eyes met across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. "I believe I need a partner for the next song," Russell said, his voice slightly rough. "Miss Zimmerman, would you do me the honor?" Emma stepped forward as Russell began a slower melody. He played and swayed at the same time, keeping a respectable distance between them as they moved around the parlor. The children watched wide-eyed, and even Mrs. Holloway dabbed at her eyes with her handkerchief. When the song ended, little Thomas clapped his hands. "Again," he demanded. "Let me rest a moment," Russell said, setting aside the fiddle. "Why don't you three get ready for bed? If you're quick about it, there might be time for one Christmas story before Santa comes." The mention of Santa sent the children scurrying upstairs, Mrs. Holloway following to assist them. Left alone, Emma and Russell stood in the glow of the Christmas tree candles. "Thank you for the dance," Emma said softly. "Thank you for everything you've done to make this Christmas special," Russell replied. "Last year at this time, I couldn't have imagined feeling joy again." Emma's heart swelled at his words. "The children deserve happy memories." "So do you," Russell said, stepping closer. "So do I." He reached up, touching a sprig of greenery hanging from the ceiling that Emma hadn't noticed before. "Mrs. Holloway's doing, I suspect," he said with a slight smile. "Mistletoe." Emma's breath caught as Russell's hand gently cupped her cheek. "May I?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, unable to find words as he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, almost hesitant, but it sent warmth rushing through her entire body. When Russell drew back, his eyes searched hers. "I've wanted to do that since the first snowfall," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" Emma asked, her voice unsteady. "I promised to wait until spring." His thumb brushed across her cheek. "But some promises are harder to keep than others." Footsteps on the stairs announced the children's return, and they stepped apart, both flushed and smiling. Christmas Day dawned bright and clear, with fresh snow blanketing the ranch. The children woke at first light, their excitement filling the house as they discovered the gifts beneath the tree wooden toys Russell had carved in secret, new mittens and scarves Emma had knitted, books and candies and small treasures that brought squeals of delight. Emma received a beautiful leather-bound journal from Russell, with her initials embossed on the cover. "For your thoughts," he said as she ran her fingers over the smooth leather. "Since you've mentioned missing your writing desk from Boston." "It's perfect," she whispered, touched by his thoughtfulness. Emma's gift to Russell was a framed charcoal portrait of the children that she'd drawn over several evenings, working from memory and quick sketches made while they played. "You have Clara's talent," Russell said, voice thick with emotion as he studied the drawing. "You've captured them perfectly." The day passed in a blur of meals and games and laughter. By evening, the children were exhausted but happy, falling asleep quickly despite their protests that they weren't tired. Russell found Emma in the kitchen later, washing the last of the dinner dishes. "Leave those," he said. "I had no idea she kept this," Emma said, tears welling in her eyes. "She wore it on special occasions," Russell explained. "Said it kept her family close to her heart." Emma closed the locket gently. "Thank you for this. I'll treasure it." Russell took the necklace from her hands. "Turn around," he said softly. "Let me put it on you." Emma turned, lifting her hair as Russell fastened the chain around her neck. His fingers lingered on her skin, sending shivers down her spine. When she faced him again, his expression was solemn. "You're not a replacement for her," he said, as if reading her thoughts. "I need you to know that." "I know," Emma assured him. "Our hearts have room to love more than once." Russell smiled, taking her hand and raising it to his lips. "Merry Christmas, Emma." "Merry Christmas, Russell." As winter deepened, life at the ranch fell into a comfortable rhythm. The days were filled with household duties, lessons for the children, and occasional trips into town for supplies. The evenings brought the family together around the fire, sharing stories and playing games. Emma found herself growing more attached to this life with each passing day. She loved watching Sarah's reading skills improve, teaching Thomas his numbers, and discussing history with curious Michael. She enjoyed her conversations with Russell, learning about ranching and mining, sharing books they both had read. And then there were the quiet moments, a brush of hands as they passed in the hallway, a lingering glance across the supper table, the occasional stolen kiss when the children weren't looking. By February, Emma knew her heart was fully engaged, despite her protestations about waiting until spring. The weather turned particularly harsh in late February. A blizzard swept down from the mountains, confining everyone to the house for 3 days. On the 4th morning, Russell announced he needed to check on the cattle in the north pasture. "The hands report the shelter was damaged in the storm," he explained as he pulled on his heavy coat. "I won't be long." Emma helped him wrap a scarf around his neck. "Be careful. The wind is still strong." Russell caught her hand, pressing a quick kiss to her palm. "Always am." Hours later, as the short winter day began to fade, Emma grew concerned. Russell should have returned by now. She tried to hide her worry from the children, keeping them occupied with indoor games, but her eyes constantly drifted to the windows. When Michael asked directly where his father was, Emma forced a smile. Probably helping the men repair the shelter. He'll be back soon. But as darkness fell completely and supper went cold on the table, Emma could no longer pretend. She asked Mrs. Holloway to watch the children and went to find Harlan, the ranch foreman. Mr. Preston hasn't returned from the north pasture, she explained, trying to keep her voice steady. It's been over 8 hours. Harlan's weathered face showed immediate concern. That's not right. Should have been a 4-hour job at most. Could you send someone to check? The foreman shook his head. Too dangerous in the dark with the snow drifts. We'd risk losing more men. So we just wait? Emma couldn't keep the distress from her voice. Harlan's expression softened. First light, Miss Zimmerman. We'll head out at first light. Mr. Preston knows these mountains better than anyone. If he's delayed, he's found shelter. Emma nodded, though her heart rebelled at the thought of waiting through the long night. She returned to the house, tucked the anxious children into bed with promises that their father was fine, just delayed by ranch business. But alone in her room, Emma paced restlessly, imagining all manner of terrible scenarios. What if Russell was injured, lost in the snow? The thought of losing him now, when they'd found their way to each other through grief, was unbearable. She must have eventually fallen asleep, for she woke with a start to find pale dawn light filtering through her window. Dressing quickly, Emma hurried downstairs to find Harlan and 3 other men preparing to ride out. "Any word?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Harlan shook his head grimly. "We'll find him, Mississippi, don't you worry." Emma watched them ride out, then returned to the house to prepare for another day of keeping the children's spirits up while managing her own fear. By mid-morning, the children's questions were becoming harder to deflect. Emma was in the kitchen, mechanically kneading bread dough, when the sound of horses approaching sent her rushing to the window. For riders were returning and one horse carried a slumped figure tied to the saddle. Emma ran outside, heedless of the cold, her heart in her throat as the men dismounted. Russell was unconscious, his face pale beneath a bloody gash on his forehead. "Found him trapped under his horse in a ravine," Harlan explained as they carried Russell inside. "Horse broke its leg in a snowdrift. Must have thrown him as it fell." The next hours were a blur as Emma cleaned Russell's wound, checked for broken bones, and tried to warm his dangerously cold body. Dr. Wilkins arrived by midday, confirmed Emma's assessment of a concussion, and pronounced Russell lucky to be alive after a night in the cold. "He's strong," the doctor assured Emma. "With proper care, he should recover fully." Emma sat by Russell's bedside through the afternoon and evening, alternately sponging his fevered brow and holding his cold hands between hers. The children were allowed brief visits, reassured by Emma that their father would wake up soon. It was well past midnight when Russell finally stirred, his eyelids fluttering open. He looked disoriented for a moment before focusing on Emma's face. "Emma," his voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here," she said, squeezing his hand. "You're safe now." Russell's brow furrowed as memory returned. "The horse, we know. Don't try to talk too much." Emma helped him take a sip of water. "You have a concussion and mild frostbite on your hands and feet. The doctor says you'll recover completely." Russell settled back against the pillows, his eyes never leaving her face. "You look terrible," he observed with a weak attempt at humor. Emma gave a watery laugh. "Thank you very much." "No, I mean," Russell squeezed her hand weakly. "You haven't slept." "I couldn't," Emma admitted. "Not until I knew you were safe." Russell's expression softened. "I thought of you out there in the cold. Kept me fighting." Emma's composure finally broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks as the fear and relief of the past 24 hours overwhelmed her. "Don't cry," Russell whispered, reaching up to brush away a tear despite his own weakness. "I'm too stubborn to die before spring." Emma caught his hand and pressed it to her cheek. "I don't want to wait until spring," she said, the words tumbling out. "I love you, Russell. I've known it for months." Russell's eyes widened. "Emma, nearly losing you made me realize how foolish I've been, insisting on some arbitrary timeline." Emma continued. "Life is too uncertain, too precious to waste." A smile spread across Russell's pale face. "Are you proposing to me, Miss Zimmerman?" Emma laughed through her tears. "I suppose I am, Mr. Preston." "Good." Russell's eyes were already drooping with exhaustion, but his smile remained. "Because I've loved you since the first snowfall, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise." Emma leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to his lips. "Sleep now. We'll talk more when you're stronger." Russell's eyes closed, but he kept hold of her hand. "Don't leave," he murmured. "I won't," Emma promised. "Not ever." Russell's recovery progressed steadily over the next weeks. By early March, he was up and moving around the house, though Emma insisted he limit his time outdoors until his strength fully returned. The children, relieved to have their father back, became Emma's eager assistants in caring for him, bringing books, arranging pillows, and reporting any attempt Russell made to sneak out to the barn when Emma wasn't looking. "I have spies everywhere," Emma teased one afternoon when she caught Russell pulling on his boots. "You're not ready for ranch work yet." Russell sighed, setting the boots aside. "I'm not used to being idle." "Read to the children," Emma suggested. "Help Michael with his mathematics. There are plenty of ways to be useful without risking your health." Russell caught her hand, pulling her down to sit beside him. "When did you become so bossy?" "When I nearly lost you," Emma replied seriously. Russell's expression softened. "We still haven't properly discussed your proposal." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I was emotional that night. If you'd prefer a more traditional arrangement—" "I don't care who proposes to whom," Russell interrupted. "I just want to know when you'll marry me." Emma's heart skipped. "You're still recovering, Emma," Russell said firmly, taking both her hands in his. "I nearly died in that ravine. Clarified a few things for me, just as it did for you. Life is short and unpredictable. I don't want to waste another day not being your husband." Emma studied their joined hands. "The children love you already," Russell finished. "Sarah asked me yesterday if you were going to be her new mother." Emma looked up in surprise. "She did." Russell nodded. "I told her I was working on it." A laugh escaped Emma. "How romantic." "I can do romantic," Russell said, his eyes twinkling. "If I weren't still confined to this chair, I'd get down on one knee properly." "That won't be necessary," Emma assured him, her heart full. "Yes, Russell Preston. I'll marry you as soon as you're well enough to stand at the altar without fainting." Russell's answering smile was brighter than any she'd seen since arriving at the ranch. He pulled her close, sealing their agreement with a kiss that promised many more to come. They were married on the first day of spring, in the small white church in Silverridge. The children stood beside them, Michael proudly holding the rings, Sarah scattering wildflower petals, and Thomas solemnly announcing to everyone that Aunt Emma is our mama now. Emma wore a simple blue dress with Clara's locket around her neck. Russell, fully recovered from his injuries, looked handsome in a new suit ordered from Denver. The ranch hands and townspeople filled the church, celebrating not just a wedding but the healing of a family that had been broken by grief. After the ceremony, everyone returned to the ranch for a feast prepared by Mrs. Holloway and the neighboring women. There was music and dancing in the yard, children playing tag between the adults, and enough food to feed twice the number of guests. As evening approached, Russell found Emma sitting on the porch, watching the celebration. "Happy, Mrs. Preston?" he asked, taking the seat beside her. The name still felt new and wonderful. "Very," Emma assured him, "though I'm a bit overwhelmed." Russell took her hand, running his thumb over the simple gold band he'd placed there hours before. "Everyone will leave soon. Harlan will make sure of it." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "It's been quite a journey from that first day when I found you sitting by the children's beds, whispering that I was trying," Russell remembered. "I was so lost then. And now," Russell turned to her, his eyes full of love, "now I'm found. We all are." As the sun set over the mountains, casting golden light across the ranch that was now truly her home, Emma knew that the unexpected journey west had led her exactly where she was meant to be to this man, these children, and the love that had grown from shared grief into something beautiful and enduring. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the children were asleep, Russell led Emma to the master bedroom, a room she hadn't entered since arriving at the ranch. "I've had it redecorated," Russell explained as he opened the door. "A fresh start." Emma stepped inside to find the room transformed. New curtains hung at the windows, a beautiful quilt covered the bed, and a small writing desk stood in the corner. "For your journal," Russell explained, noticing her gaze on the desk. "I want you to have your own space here." Tears pricked Emma's eyes at his thoughtfulness. "It's perfect." Russell wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Welcome home, Emma Preston." Emma turned in his embrace, raising her face to his. "I love you," she whispered. As his lips met hers in a tender kiss, Emma knew that their story was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Ranch life wasn't easy, and blending a family took patience and love. But standing in her husband's arms, with their children sleeping peacefully down the hall, Emma felt ready for whatever the future might bring. They had found each other against all odds, healing each other's hearts and creating a new family from the fragments of grief. And in that moment it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.